Chris, it's great to see you again. It's always fun to have conversations with you. We've been kind of tag teaming with each other for a number of years. We've been in different groups together as participants in mastermind groups and strategy sessions. And you've always been one that I've appreciated your inventive and innovative nature. You, like many of us, started out, as a clinical dentist, and you've obviously gone very deep down that rabbit hole. But at the same time, you've always been on the forefront of creating value adds for all of us who are in the dental industry and practice in terms of leadership and scheduling and marketing. And now you're the CEO of the Cialdini Institute. Congratulations. You've been a long time mentee with Robert Cialdini, and I know that's a big focus for you. But at the same time, you've got your hands still in a lot of things in dentistry with Sunrise and Golden Goose scheduling and all that you do. My question to you is, what was your motivation, your inspiration back whenever that you first felt that? Maybe it happened while you were still in school. I don't know, but what was it? Curiosity? Was it you were trying to figure things out to help yourself as a clinical dentist, or is that just your nature?
Yeah, that's a great question, because prior to dental school, I never had any entrepreneurial inkling, right? I always just had jobs and just thought I wanted to do dentistry, but I still thought I would be an employee of my business, right? Treating patients and whatnot. And so dental school was the first opportunity where I realized what my unique ability is, in essence.
Right.
And really, it's the foundation of what I built all my companies around. I just got really good at washing, rinsing, and repeating. And in essence, it was when I was studying. So me as an undergraduate student versus me as a dental school student, my wife will tell you, because she was there both, was a tale of two cities. Me as an undergrad was not that motivated to go to class. And because to me, it was a hoop to jump through to get to where I really wanted to be, right? Why do I have to just memorize this crap for a test that I'm never going to use, right? What does that really prove about me in this other role? So it was hard for me to get motivated. I did well, but I didn't do as well as I could have, right? And didn't put the effort into it. But when I got to school, in dental school, I was like, all right, this is the show, right? This is the big game. This is what I've wanted to do since I was in middle school. So this long-term commitment had finally been realized. But it was so much information, I had to simplify it for myself, right? And so my way of studying, my process was, it took me multiple hours to condense every test first down to 15 pages of notebook paper. Then I rewrote it down to 10 pages, and then I rewrote it again down to 5 pages, front and back. And that's what I put my time into. And one of my classmates came up to me and asked me if I would mentor him, right? If I would tutor him, because he was struggling, 68, 72 a test kind of thing. And he saw I did well. And I said, well, look, buddy, I don't know what to tell you. It's a lot of stuff. You got to know it, but I saw him putting in the effort, hours in the library, but he wasn't getting the result. Mm-hmm. And I'm always willing to help anybody that's putting in effort, right? Because I know his problem was he just couldn't figure out what was important. Right. He couldn't simplify it for himself. So therefore, he didn't know what to focus on. So he didn't focus on the right things. So I just made him a copy of my test and said, here, put your time and effort into this. And he saw the 5 pages and he was like, that's it? I'm like, that's what I do. We'll see how you do. And he got like a 94 on the first test, right? And he says, oh my God, amazing. Do you have the next test? Like, yeah, I do this for every test. And so I gave him the next copy of the test. 92. He thanked me profusely. And then he handed me $10 and said, thanks for the tutoring. And then he handed me another 10 and said, can I get the next test? And I was like, told my wife, I was like, honey, I just made $20 studying. She was like, what? Flash forward 2 nights later, one of my classmates, a different one, knocks at my door in my apartment one night. And he goes, hey, so I've seen what you've been doing with our friend, and I hear you got these notes. I need a copy. And he hands me his $10. Flash forward later, I had over 70 members of my class on the payroll for every test.
70.
Word had spread out of we had like 120
oh,
in
yeah.
the class.
Well,
and yeah, the top 10% of the class absolutely hated me because I blew the curve out of the water. Right. But I realized that I was good at figuring out, solving the problem, and that others valued and appreciated it, and I could monetize that. I just organically stumbled my way into it. My first entrepreneurial business. And so every company I've built, it all started with a pain point that I had in my own practices. Mm-hmm. And it was like a dog with a bone. Once I really dug into it, it was like, I need to get to the root cause of this thing. and really solve it, not only for myself, but what I realized was, will this work for others? And when I realize it does, then I usually build a company around it.
Yeah. Well, that's so good. That's really helpful, and it makes a lot of sense because I think that those who do solve problems for themselves, once you solve it, as you said, other people are going to migrate to you, and that's where you can do great things. You can have greater impact, whatever your thing is, right? But
Mhm.
certainly, you're solving it for yourself first. That's the motivation. That's the incentive. And then if you figure something out that is scalable to other people that have similar problems, then hey, you've got something to run with. And I think there's a lot of fun. When you create those solutions, then of course what you want to do is you don't want to be the one who has to be the deliverer on all of that. So you create the process systems, you create the team, the support system, the infrastructure, right? And that's what you've done. So every business, really, probably most of these businesses run pretty much on their own. I mean, you're in and out, and still, the top level visionary, I assume, but for the most part, except for the things you really are focused on and driving, maybe it's the
Mhm.
Cialdini Institute right now. So when you have a lot of I'll just use the kind of cliche, plates to spin. That's not really fair because you're doing more than plate spinning, all right. But when you have things going on, the question people would often have is like, well, how do you, like, quote, balance everything and your family and your health and everything else that's important for you? How do you do that? So let's go there.
Yeah. No, it is a great question. The solution to spinning a lot of plates is figuring out how you're not the one spinning them.
Mhm.
At least not all of them. Some of them I am spinning, right? So as
Yeah.
you said, what I realized was nobody's better at digging in and starting it up. Let's say a company, to creating a company out of these solutions than I am, and to be the first on the ground to test it with the market and figure out, does this work for them? Does it not? We need to adapt. Okay, right. Let's modify it. And but as so I put so I'm strategic and I don't start 10 of those at the same time. I try not to work on more than one of those at the same time so I can give it all of my focus and attention. And but my goal is to bring in the right people as fast as possible and offload these tests for me so that I can get it independent, get them self managing, if you will, so that they don't need me for these day to day things. And like you said, I could be free to be the marketing promotion guy, which I'm out there doing anyway, or I can be the strategic planner for the year, and or they know if they got a problem they can't figure out, I'm the guy they come to bring in to help solve, right? So once the plate's spinning and I hand that spinning plate to somebody else, then I got time to do the next thing and focus on that. And then I've got time once I hand that plate off to the next thing. And so it looks like a lot of plates are spinning, but as I said, I'm not the one doing them. My
Mhm.
team is. And I'm only focused on one or two plates spinning at one given time, that I am very strategic about scheduling time to keep my mindset focused on those things, not shifting it between multiple plates if possible, focused on one plate spinning, and give it all my energies for that specific period of time. And I found that to be a way more productive use of my time, and still allows me to budget family time and vacations and other things that we like to do. So
Well, building that team for the various businesses is really the critical part. I mean, we can figure out processes and systems, but somewhere somebody, unless AI takes over the world, and then we don't need people. But I
right.
think we still gonna need people, even with AI. So so I know you're certified in Colby training, and I've studied Colby, but not to your level. But let's just take that. How important of a tool or resource is right people, right seats, and how much does Colby impact that? Maybe that's a good way to put that question.
Yeah, that's a great question because it was instrumental in the success of not only my dental practices and finding the right people, or making sure I had the right people in the right seat on the bus,
Hmm.
but also instrumental in helping me hire the right people for these new companies endeavors and making sure that I'm putting them in a position to succeed and not in a position to fail. Because what I realize is that Colby is basically this instinctive profile, right? How we're all built naturally, our natural strengths, if you will, and challenges that come with that by default. So it's not your IQ, it's not your personality, it's a different part of the mind, right? I like to say it's what kind of car are you? Your Ferrari and your job is requiring you to drive off road, or you Ferrari and your job is the highway, right? One of those two is going to be a lot easier versus the other one. So what it Colby ultimately showed me was this: there's a certain strength and profile for every role and position in your company, whatever that company is, And you've got one or two choices when you're trying to put somebody in that seat. You're either taking a person, whatever their Colby is, and you're trying to make them fit your job. Or what I realized was that the people that were naturally attracted to roles, let's say my front office, for instance, none of them fit the profile that the job needed. But I'm forcing the square peg through a round hole because of it, because that's all I got. And that, wondering why they're failing miserably and their turnover is so great, right? Well, Colby showed me the realization of that, and I'm the fool for expecting a different outcome. It actually made me change my mindset, and I realized I need to stop making this person try to fit this job, which they won't because they're not built for it. I need to make the job fit the person. I have to change the way the job is done and make it fit their strengths and figure out what to do with what does it fit their strengths, right? And if that's outsourcing, if that's hiring another person, sometimes like my a treatment coordinator position, for instance, there's actually two different profiles that actually fit that role in the dental office. Okay. So I realized I had one person that was sitting in two different seats, but they were one seat is what we were calling it. But no, they're actually two very different seats, two profiles involved. So I'm going to make the job fit them, and then I'll create a different seat for this, what's left, if possible. So that's really what it helped me. I need to make this, if possible, I will get the person who fits the job. But if I can't find them, I need to be willing to make the job fit the person.
So we're really talking, Chris, about some skill sets that never made it into my curriculum in dental school. I don't know much. We're laughing because we know the focus is to get through and pass that didactic and clinical basics to get out in the world and start doing what we're trained to do. But the realization is, and what we're just really discussing here right now, is that those clinical skills and that license to practice, that is an entry point, but it's all it is. And if you want to succeed by whatever your definition is, and that's gonna be different for everybody, whatever success means to you. And to me, it means less stress, better bottom line profits, doing it the way I want to do it, not having to fool around with insurance and all the other BS that the industry takes on. Is these other, you can call them softer skills, but skills that aren't taught in school. These are really the key. That open the door. And I know that's what you're about. I mean, that's what you branched out in. And we could do a deep dive on Colby, but we just touched the surface of it. I just want to make sure we got that out. All the work you've done with Robert Cialdini, there's so much there, and you teach courses there. My point is, I'm just trying to reference what you and I both have figured out. Me the hard way. You maybe a little more easily because you were doing it as you went. But just realizing that what I knew academically would not transfer into what I wanted in my life or my business or practice by working harder on that. Right. And I needed these other skills, or to surround myself with people that had the skills if I didn't have them or didn't care to develop them myself. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, what was interesting is my first 7 years out in practice was a blessing and a curse, because I had a lot of success in a small amount of time. 10 timesing the revenue of that initial practice, going to 4 locations, right? Having 100 plus people that worked for me between employees and doctors, a measure of success by all accounts in most people's books. But I was trapped in my own business, right? I had no freedom of time or anything like that. So realizing that where my mindset was at the beginning of school and what I thought I wanted once I achieved it, maybe wasn't what I needed and what I should want and strive for the long run as well. So it was, I was probably uncoachable those first 7 years. So it was actually when I took those from success and they finally started struggling, having those kind of pain points was the realization for me that maybe there's a better and different way. And I should look to others. Like, this is why I started associating with people like you and people in other entrepreneur groups and learning what others out there are doing as my wake-up call that, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I can look to what others have done and the social proof, if you will, to guide me. Maybe I can look to experts like Cialdini and Colby who can guide me towards realizations, ultimately about what do people really use to make their decisions and how can I predict their behavior? To me, that's what influence in Colby does. I know how to move people down a path now, and I know what they're going to do and they're not going to do over the long run. I mean, if you know those two things, there's not much you can't do.
You've also authored at least a couple of books I know of, Grow Your Dental Membership Plan, and we may talk about that in a moment, but also the complete book on dental marketing, which I have to say is a tome. It's a compendium. It's it is an all encompassing source of marketing. And again, marketing was something that I don't think the word marketing left the lips of any of my professors in dental school.
Yeah.
Well, what was it there? I guess it was banned. I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
back in the '70s, you actually couldn't market in the professions, but
Right.
that obviously has changed over the years. Marketing is a key element for anybody, any business, anybody who provides solutions and is trying to create a marketplace and create an inroad to prospective patients, clients, whatever it is you're looking for. I want to go back to uh, the right people in the right seats. We know since particularly going through COVID and after COVID. Uh, the entire labor force universally has completely changed. We work from home, remote work. We know in the government sector, what they find out that like 1% were actually going to the office. It was, ridiculous, right? But not so ridiculous when we talk about our own businesses, our own practices, where in many places hygiene shortage. Just docs are going, I just can't find a hygienist. Hygienists are sick and tired of it. They're not going to do it, or they want a pay premium up to here, and I'll just do my own. And then in my front desk, my back office, clinical assistants, it's just churn. So you've got great ways to assess potential candidates, but what if the darn labor source is just bringing you like just stuff that doesn't even meet the filter? Can marketing play a point of reference there for those who are having a hard time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you're looking to acquire the best of the best out there in the labor force, in essence, you're marketing yourself to try to attract them to your practice, right? So your marketing has to be on point there. And really the messaging you're putting out there is absolutely critical. What are you putting out there to show others that you're different than everybody else? That's one of the ways actually I leveraged Colby was I would take this ideal profile of who I was looking for a position and the Colby strengths and terms and phrases associated with that strength. And I would put that in my job description, right? So I'd automatically, if you're that person and that's how you're built, I'm already speaking your language and making myself look completely different than I got a job.
Right.
Right. I'm somebody who's looking for these skill sets. And if you're this type of person, right. And if you are, the good news is I got a job. In fact, not just a job, I got a career if you're interested in that as well.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what we all want, right? Like we want people that we can attract that have the skill sets, the attributes that we can hopefully assess and do a good job doing that. But also for people that are playing the long game and they're not just looking for just the paycheck. And of course, we have to authentically have that environment, and then we have to speak to it or paint the picture with the right copy, the right messaging in our marketing to attract that particular person, and not just a wide funnel like this where we're just getting applicant after applicant that are just worthless, right? I mean, the marketing can actually be the filter that brings us, whether you're looking for staff applicants or you're looking for patients, you're looking for a particular type, an avatar, can we say, right?
Yep.
And so a lot of what marketing does is helps us find, or those people find us, and then we attract the right people. Would that be correct?
Well, and with marketing, what I've realized is in the influence world, we always say not only what you say to people is important, but actually the order, the sequence in which you say it is even more important. That sets the stage for yes versus no. And I'm often blown away of how important the sequence of things is. And I'm noticing it more and more and more when people are putting out the right things, but the order's wrong, right? So from a marketing standpoint, everybody goes to the medium first. Where should I put it? Right? Then they may think about the message. And then without very little thought of who are you actually trying to attract? What is that avatar? Right? In fact, the sequence is you need to be very clear, not generic, but crystal clear and as specific as possible on who you're looking for. Right. Who's, from a patient standpoint, from a team member standpoint, like that's where that Colby language came in. I know with detail who I'm looking for. And so I can express that in my messaging. Automatically, I got a chance to attract a better person now, patient, team member, et cetera. So starting with that market first, understanding who that is, then crafting the messages that are going to, in this world where we're distracted by everything, nobody's paying attention to anything. They're half listening to this podcast right now because they're distracted by 10 other things. But something is going to grab their focus and attention, hopefully, and make them go, wait a minute, that sounded important. Let me go back, or let me pay attention to this next thing. So your messaging, that's all it does. What can you put out there as your headline to grab their focus and attention that makes them want to read more or find out more? Then you strategically figure out mediums. Where am I going to put this thing? So understanding that sequence is also important.
I want to take a few minutes and go to the work you've done and continue to do with Cialdini and now the Institute. What are some examples or principles that you know and teach about persuasion that apply to our audience, primary audience here today, which would be in the dental office? How could I, as an owner of my practice, you start to utilize, and what would be some of the potential outcomes that I could potentially see if I understood and utilized some of the principles?
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 of them in total. We've got reciprocity, meaning if you give someone a gift of value, significance, an obligation is created inside of them that person wants to give back in kind. Liking, we like to do business with people we like, right? So if it's a friend asking, it's hard to say no. If it's not a friend asking, it's not as hard to say no, okay? Unity means sometimes we unite ourselves with others under certain categories or banners, if you will. So liking is similarity. You're like me, but unity is you are me. We are of the same. So we could both be fanatical sports team fans. You know, we are the Spurs if we live in Texas, right? In San Antonio. Or I am a Tar Heel fan. So we are Tar Heels, if you will, if you follow college basketball. Family unit, right? So there's all kinds of things we can unite under. Social proof. We look to evidence what others are doing to show us what we should do. While we all want to be unique individuals, we still want to be unique individuals that are part of something, part of a tribe, part of a group, part of a community. And so if we see those we associate ourselves with moving a certain direction away from us, there's a big pull for us to follow, right? And so authority means we look to credible, trustworthy experts to tell us what we should do. And it's important to get credibility. You have to have real expertise in what you're talking about and advising, as well as be trusted by others. Consistency is the commitment principle. If people commit, then they do, right? That was my big realization in my own practices. Why am I having all these struggling issues? Why aren't patients returning for needed treatment?
Right.
Why do I have to keep telling my team to do their job? Why don't they just do it, right? Why was it when the cat was away, because I bounced between offices, the mice would play? Why my associate doctors, why am I paying for their education and they don't come back and use it and put it into practice, right? My realization was I didn't get a commitment out of any of them to do any of those things. Not really. And so I'm the crazy one for expecting a different outcome. But once I got them to commit and make real commitments, everything changed. So consistency is huge in dentistry. And of course, scarcity is just about loss, right? We care more about what we stand to lose, the consequences of doing nothing, than the benefits of doing something. So I'd say out of those two, the two biggest bungles I see in dentistry are liking and consistency. Nobody's taking the time to connect with people anymore, right? There's two, especially if you're in a heavy PPO-based practice. If you don't have volume because of the margins and how they've been cut because of the fee schedule you had to accept, you got to churn and burn. We got to keep getting to the next one and the next one and the next one. So nobody's taking the time to show others that you like them by finding something in common, connecting them on some base level. And guess what? If there's no relationship, people don't come back, right? They don't say yes today and they don't return. So we're sacrificing everything on this hamster wheel because now we got to replace them, and around we go. So not taking the time to show others we like them and connect with them is costing our industry billions. And with consistency, as I said, not getting commitments. So just a simple one. I hear from docs all day, a lot right now, that no-shows and cancellations and reschedules are at an all-time high again, right? Pre-COVID levels is what we're back to. The pendulum has finally swung back the other way. So what that tells me is that offices are not doing a good job getting people committed to those appointments. So just changing one statement, how we usually end any call after we've made an appointment, we usually say, please call us if you can't be here. You need to cancel or reschedule. So just changing that to a commitment question. Hey, David, will you please call us if you can't make your appointment? For any reason, will you please call us? And waiting for you to say, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Great. In one study alone in a popular restaurant in Chicago, asking that commitment question reduced no-shows on reservations from 30% down to 10. Okay. One commitment question. Imagine if we got more commitments out of that. What if instead of just telling them your appointment times, you gave them a choice, this or that? Marriott figured this back in the 80s, this week or next week, morning or afternoon, 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So the better you present things and giving people a voluntary choice and frame it as a this or that option. And typically the second thing is what I want them to say yes to, the more compliance you get. And now the more committed they are to showing. So getting those relationships built and getting better commitments out of people are probably the two most powerful that I see we bungle all day long.
That's excellent, Chris. I totally can see that, and it makes sense. And really, in that commitment, you really use what you talked about earlier in sequence. Basically, the words were the same. You just changed the sequence of the words to turn it around and get that commitment rather than a negative statement of please call us if you can't make it. I mean, that's basically that's almost setting a precedent for. We know you're busy, and if you care to come see us, well, drop on by. If it's kind of convenient that day. If not, just no problem. Totally different scenario. I do want to talk a little bit about Sunrise, because I've really enjoyed getting to know some of the other key leaders in Sunrise over the last year or so, and you've been a big part of that. I know that Tony Feck, who back in decades ago, when he was also part of I can't even remember the Docs organization. Docs. That's where I met Tony decades ago. But Sunrise running now. Just give us an idea of how Sunrise, who your ideal clients are, what they're looking for, and what kind of generally outcomes you're able to have them achieve. I know it's a big wide statement, but what would you say, like, who are you attracting? Maybe that's the way, and what kind of outcomes are your ideal clients achieving today?
Yeah. I mean, I would say our clients come in a couple different stages. Ultimately, we're looking for good practices that want to transition to be great practices, whatever that means to them. Okay. At the same time, we also attract great practices that want to take it to another level, right? And just want to stand out, be the big fish in their town, if that makes sense, right? To stand out from others. I'd say those are our two main folks we're looking at. And that could be folks that are trying to grow and scale what they're doing. That can mean adding multiple practices to what they're doing now, like I did in my business originally. It could just be maximizing the capacity of what you've got to its fullest extent. It could be getting your freedom of time, as I said, making the practice independent of you. Mm-hmm. That was one of my main goals. Get it to be so I'm making a certain amount of money that I can count on, whether I'm there or not. And just if I show up and do dentistry, it's gravy, right? It's great, but it doesn't affect my lifestyle or my income and other kind of things. It could be that I'm looking to retirement here in the next year or in 3 years, and I want to position myself in my practice to have leverage, right? So that there's opportunities. If I sell to another dentist, if I sell to one of the DSOs or one of those kind of groups, I want to make sure that, and this person's in the best position, that they have leverage to get the best possible deal that makes the most sense for them, right? And is the biggest win, whatever that defines. So it's going to be different for everybody, but I want them to at least have an option to go whatever path they choose. Not feel like they're forced into a path because of that. So we get people at different stages of their practice transition and career. What's amazing is kind of what makes Sunrise stand out is that whatever coach you're working with, myself, Dr. Feck, as I said, he's been doing this for 25 plus years, or one of our other coaches, for the most part, they've all been there and done that. They have that wisdom and experience that you get to leverage. As what I like, one of my favorite ways of learning was, you can do it yourself, and do it yourself works to a point. I mean, initially in those first 7 years, I said I was uncoachable. I cracked a lot of eggs to make that omelet. Okay. More eggs than I care to admit, and made way more mistakes and failures than I care to admit to, but they were a reality. But at the end, it was a pretty damn good omelet, right? My hope for most people is that they don't want to feel like they have to touch the hot stove to understand that it's hot. if I can save them that pain and headache and help them make a better omelet faster and by making less mistakes along the way, where any of our sunrise coaches can do that, then that's what our motivation is. That's what our big goal is. And so we're looking for those who are ready and they think they're at the point where they're ready to be coachable, to get true wisdom and guidance from experienced people that have been there and done that. And those that have experience and systems at each level of growth, because, what is the old song, more money, more problems, meaning, the problems and challenges you have up to $1 million practice are completely different for a $2 million practice, are completely different for a $4 million practice, and are completely different if you have two or more of those things and some variety in between. So knowing that what got you to where you are today is probably not going to get you to where you want to go tomorrow if there's a higher level. So maybe now's the time to get some guidance and advice on what to do next.
I think we've all climbed that mountain, Chris. We start out, lugging the knapsack or the backpack ourselves because that's what we've been taught to do. I can do this. I've gotten to this point. I don't need any help. Not coachable, but you're right. Everybody gets to a certain point where to have a real breakthrough, to break that ceiling to whatever your next level is for you, going with somebody who has charted that path is collapsing time. It's speed to goal. And with the lives we live today, speed to goal is everything. So yes, once you've had enough of running solo, which we all have to do to some point, then jump in and find the people who have been there. And I'm a big fan of yours, Chris. I appreciate you being on today with us. And I look forward to a continued collaboration because that's how we help more people with the different aspects and experience that we bring to the table. So again, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, David.